Now, it doesn't feel like yesterday, but it definitely doesn't feel like it was that long ago. I can remember back when my cousin and I used to go to the barber shop. We'd go on a Saturday morning, and hopefully we got there soon enough. If we got there pretty early, we could get in the barber chair right away. But if we didn't get there early, then we would sit in the barber shop for hours, just waiting in line, sitting on the bench, waiting till it was our turn, just to be in the chair for like 20 minutes. And I can remember him taking us, because he was like, let's say he was probably about, I guess like he was like 17 and I was 14. He's 3 years older than me. And I remember going back to my house, because we would always, after barbershop, we'd go back to my house. And we were kids, we'd go outside and play and stuff like that. But we got to the point where obviously we cared a little bit about what we looked like, right? Like we want to look good and stuff like that. And my cousin has always been very, detailed oriented kind of guy, but great guy. And he would always go back and say, Julian, you need to fix this. Like we need to finish the cut. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he would take me back to the bathroom, and we'd grab my mom's little hair toolkit, and he'd grab her scissors. And these scissors, keep in mind, these scissors were like they're very like small ones, and they're not sharp at all. And they look like almost like kids scissors, And I could just remember them, like comparing to my scissors that I use now is just crazy, right? Like at the time I didn't know any different. And so he'd grab the scissors and he would grab his own hair. Like he would take a piece of his own hair and he goes, here, I need you to cut this. And so with his hand, he would hold the hair in place where he wanted me to cut. And then with my hand, I would go over and I'd start cutting the pieces of hair that he wanted me to cut. And he would do that all the way around. And he had kind of like the Mohawk style back in the day, with the rat tail. And yeah, I can remember like it was not that long ago that we were doing that. And I remember being there cutting his hair and stuff like that. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of like obviously doing what he told me to do. But that was a turning point into where I obviously started to think about, how much I liked it, right? Like I didn't even really know anything about it until I started doing it. And then I'm like, this is kind of fun. And I think it was fun because it was a way of us bonding together, like it was something else other than just playing and stuff like that, that we were like doing something together, that we were still bonding, but I was helping him out, right? And he was like happy about it. And I just remember that satisfying feeling, like I just helped out my cousin, And so I loved doing that more and more, and we kept doing the same thing for a little longer. And then it got to the point where I got confident with just cutting hair that I wanted to try using the clippers. And so I didn't start using the clippers on him yet. I actually started using the clippers on his dad, my uncle, and on me. So prior to cutting giving him a whole haircut. Anyways, I remember the time that I picked up the pair of clippers for the first time, and it was a little nerve-wracking, right? Because it was exciting, it was nerve-wracking, it was all the feelings, like oh my gosh, right? And you don't really know what the guards do, you don't know what the measurements are. And I could just remember like how nervous I was, but how excited I was. But it wouldn't have started never started if my cousin would have never never had me cut his hair, right? Like got me to cut his hair and help him out. And that's a big reflection on what I like. What I do and why I'm so grateful for all this is because my cousin has always been a great influence in my life. And little did he know that doing that, just getting me to do that little task for him ended up becoming my future, right? Because this is my barbershop, and what do I do every day for a living? Cut hair. Exactly the same thing that he had me do that in that moment. But it was just crazy that I was 14 years old and I had no idea, obviously no I was not thinking about what do you want to do in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to do for a living? I just remember thinking like, man, I like this. This is fun. And I remember asking my mom probably around like when I was like 10 or even 12 years old, asking her, hey, can you teach me how to cut hair? And she would just kind of like, while she was cutting my hair, because she was the one that was giving us our haircuts before we started going to the barber shop. And she would just kind of brush it off, and she'd be like, oh, yeah, whatever, as she was like talking to my cousin's mom or something like that. And so I just remember being very upset, like, man, she's not paying attention to me. Like, I really want to learn how to cut hair. But it was just kind of like one of those things that I just want to learn how to do. Like, it seemed very fun to me, but I didn't really think about that becoming a profession one day. And so cutting hair at 14, it's crazy, like thinking about, because I'm surprised that he trusted me with it. Obviously we spent so much time together, but like, would you trust a 14-year-old kid to cut your hair? That's insane. I don't know if I would be a little nervous for sure. If I'm sitting there and 14-year-old kid has cut my hair, I'd be a little nervous. I hear so many other barbers, they've started sooner. They're like, oh, I started cutting hair at 12, or I started cutting hair at, even 11. But for me, it's like, when people ask me, when did you start cutting hair? I get a lot of clients that ask me that, and I'm like, how do I answer that, right? Do I tell them like when I started professionally? Do I tell them when I started hair school? It's a very broad question, because for me, I feel like I started cutting hair at 14, and it's not like it was the prettiest. I mean, I didn't really have any crazy mess up moments early on like that. It was just, I was kind of more of so the one that started out a little slower, right? Like, I didn't want to go too short. And so I always thought to myself, like, I could always go shorter. But I remember when I was 18 years old, I like got a little bit more confident, a little bit more risky, because obviously I had some experience under my belt. But as far as that goes, I feel like I've been cutting hair since I was 14, and people just will always ask me that, and I'll tell them, hey, I'll tell them the whole deal. I'll tell them like, I've been cutting hair professionally for 9 years, I'll say that. And I'll say, but, I really started dabbling into it when I was like 14 years old, and I was cutting my cousin's hair, and it just kind of becomes like a cool little story, right? A way to bond with new clients and stuff like that. But man, it's so awesome to see how far I've come. Like this month, I'm actually about to be 30 years old. I'm turning 30. And to think about that, I started back, 14 years old is just, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. There's been so many great things that's happened since then. And I love everything about how everything has been going, and I want to keep going. I want to keep cutting hair up until whenever I guess it's my time to go.